All right, Ingram Smith, Bud Elliott, back again for another episode of the Nolecast. Bud, I'm in Tallahassee. You're in the standard Nolecast studios, made possible by the great people at the legendary team. I see Chad is back in the chat, and all is normal. So, Chad, Shannon, and everybody else at the legendary Home Loans 844 FSU Loan, a process that is built on speed, simplicity, and customer service. And there could be no greater representation of that. So we'll start off with a tip of the hat to the great people at the legendary team. And with that, let's jump into it.
Let's do this thing, man. So first, I want to give the listeners an update on the prize picks. Last week, my prize picks did not go well in terms of winning, but I did have a lot of fun with them. The couple that hit. So far on the year, I've hit two 25-to-1s and a 10-to-1. So pretty solid overall. And makes playing prize picks, watching the sport of college football, but you can also do NFL, baseball with the playoffs, anything you want, really. It's a lot of fun, man. And shout out Notification Gang, obviously, in the chat. We know a lot of them play the prize picks. They ask for the prize picks. The Nolecast army is real, and they all play the same card that I send out, and they move it. And so, it's definitely a whole lot of fun. Always play it responsibly, of course. Promo code Nolecast gets you 100% deposit match bonus, right? So that's always a good time. Up to $100 for first-time depositors. And I think we can have some fun with this today. Let's take a look at what we got. Oh, so they're giving us even numbers here. I can take less interceptions for Jordan Travis. 0.5. I'm going to do that. I'm going to. Jordan has thrown one interception this year. I think PFF has him graded as like having like 4 interceptable passes on the year. As a 24 point favorite, typically you shouldn't be playing a lot of. You're making a lot of throws that are putting the ball in jeopardy. And if Vegas is right about this game, he may not throw that many passes at all. So I'm going to go ahead and go less than 1/2 of an interception for Jordan Travis. I like that one an awful lot. Also going to throw a curveball to everybody here, and we will get to the preview in just a second. I do assure you. I'm going to go less than 75.5 receiving yards on a show favorite, Jamari Thrash, which seems really risky. However, Notre Dame this year is limiting number one receivers to like 30% of their normal output. They have 2 really good corners. They can travel them. They really seem to want you to force you to throw the football to somebody else. So I'm going to go less on Jamari Thrash, which is a fairly interesting one. Let's also go. We're going to go here. Let's go more on Garrett Schrader rush touchdowns. If you watch Syracuse, you realize they don't have a lot of people to throw the ball to right now. Heck, the tight end could even be out there, the guy who played really well against Clemson. So I'm going to go Garrett Schrader with more. They run him an awful lot. I assume they'll score a little bit against Carolina, so certainly one to watch out for there. That's the Syracuse quarterback. Let's see what else that I've already played is still potentially good, because I don't want to give out stuff that you can't actually take. Let's go ahead and go to big game Burden, Luther Burden. See, this seems like a trap. 109.5 receiving yards. I've seen this offense ever since he was the OC at NC State. They take their best playmaker at Missouri. Eli Drinkwitz puts his best playmaker in the slot, and we go with that. That's a nice 4-box. Let's find one more today that we like. Let me see here. Is there another Knowles one we should put up? Let's check it out. Maybe like Johnny more than 76.5? Do you like Keon more than 70.5? Jordan more than 263.5? We can't select him because we already used him one time. Trey Benson over 69.5. Trey Benson rush touchdown over 1/2.
1.5 on Trey.
No, 0.5.
0.5, and that's the play.
All right, let's do it. All right, we're going to lock Trey in to score a rushing touchdown this weekend. Jordan, less than 1/2 of an interception, so just don't throw a pick. Jamari Thrash, less than 75.5. Garrett Schrader, more than 0.5. If you're watching us live, really appreciate that. And Luther Burden, more than 109.5. If we want to throw a sixth in there, which they haven't even put the odds up yet for that Miami game, but I was thinking of maybe playing one of their receivers over after how bad Georgia Tech's defensive backs looked there in that ball game. Oh, nice. I had a pretty invested in Western Kentucky tonight, so that is nice that is looking like a rocking chair win, up 28-7 in the first 15 minutes or 20 minutes of the ball game here. All right, I'm putting that in. Let's do this thing. Prize Picks, promo code NOLECAST. I assume everybody in the chat has already checked it out. If you can, if it's available in your state. All right, so let's do this thing. Virginia Tech comes to town, man. A proud program without a proud record. 2-3 on the season. They've beaten Old Dominion 36-17. They lost to Purdue. They lost at Rutgers, blown out in doing so. And they also lost to Marshall. They beat Pitt last week, though, 38-21, in which was like just an all-out, all-in home run effort for the Hokies at home. And Pitt looked like a disaster. Dealer's choice. Do you want to talk more of FSU's offense first, or you want to talk more FSU's defense first?
I want to talk FSU's defense. But selfishly, I want to ask you, is that report that the Djokovic moved to tight end, is that true? Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah, that's not like a fake Twitter account. It is important to note that the big game that Vatek's defense just had came against a quarterback who has now decided to finish his career at tight end because he was benched.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Insanity.
He's big. He's tough. He just really can't throw anymore.
Get back to talking about Florida State. That's wild.
Well, no, it ties in nicely because that's the team that Virginia Tech just played.
Yeah. Okay. Start on the defense. Where do we?
Yeah, let's start FSU's defense. We'll talk a little bit about this Vatek offense, and then we can kind of talk about what you want to see, what I want to see out of FSU's defense here. 3:30 ball game. I haven't checked the channel. Is it for the listeners or for the listeners and viewers at home? Is this ESPN, ABC? Do we know? We should probably look this up. However, so they are going to be primarily a gun-based team. It's going to be shotgun. They run some 11. Occasionally they'll involve more tight ends, but the tight ends that they have, their best tight end is done for the year. They lost him in week 1. From reading all their stuff, I know VT Scoop or 24/7 Sports site does a great job covering them. I love Watkins and Bowman. Those dudes are studs and one of the best sites that we have. It's an ABC game. Awesome. They would like to use the tight ends more, but they just don't have tight ends that they like right now. So they're having to play more receivers. That was really problematic for them in the middle part of the season because they didn't have Felton, Lane, or Jennings. Now Jennings is done for the year, I think, but Felton and Lane, their other two good receivers, are back. The quarterback, though, is the one that makes this thing go. And I say that very loose. I use the words "make this thing go" very loosely. Like it's not not clear
How
to me
much
that
does it really go. Yeah.
Yeah. He is 6'2", 234. So kind of like me plus 16 pounds. He is a big, now granted, like he might have lower body fat potentially. I don't know. It's hard to tell with the flak jacket. And, I got 20 years on the guy, but he is a physical runner. He's not crazy twitchy, but he's athletic enough. He's not like a Lamar Jackson pull away from you, but his legs are the show here. And I'm not saying that to be disrespectful. He is a really, really lacking as a passer overall. He's the backup. Virginia Tech starter is Grant Wells. They took this kid in the portal. He failed to beat out Wells in the spring. He failed to beat out Wells in the fall. Wells is a pretty bad quarterback for the ACC level. Okay. we can talk about how good of a game this guy had against Pitt last weekend. And I'm sure he is, getting more comfortable in the role or what have you. However, I do think it's notable here that, his passing numbers so far on the year, they're pretty horrid against some defenses that are okay and some defenses that are not okay. Looking at it, dude, 56% completions, 4-1 touchdown interception, which sounds good. Only 6 yards per attempt, which is really, really low. He's a runner first and foremost. They will throw the ball with him. When they do, it is typically a screen or off play action. You will get very little straight drop back game with him. Which means the name of the game is going to be to get to situations where like perimeter screens and play action is not particularly scary to you, right? To where, you don't have to really pay attention that much to the run. Now, obviously those situations, the kid's going to get a couple scrambles in this game. Let's just get prepared for it. Like, he's a very good runner. He certainly didn't get a scholarship to play for the Hokies due to his arm. And the offensive line is not very good. They beat Pitt and they scored 38. One was a defensive score. Another one was set up by a turnover to create a really short field. They allowed 12 tackles for loss in their win against Pitt. Their numbers have been fairly similar against. This is not a good offense. I'm just telling you right now. Like, if you go, if the starters give up something that starts with a 2, I think you're pretty annoyed on the day. I know I will be. That's not to say like you need a home run effort and like, need to get a shutout, but something in the teens when the starters are in is a reasonable expectation, in my opinion, for the level of talent that these Hokies have.
Yeah, no, I think that's reasonable. It is interesting note, and I see in the chat where On the Bench mentioned it, and I actually just saw Jeremiah Byers a little second ago, and I do believe the quarterback is his half brother, so that's cool wrinkle, and I would imagine that you will hear about that once or twice on the TV production come Saturday. So, but that's cool. That's awesome.
Absolutely.
No, big kid. They do a lot with him. They get creative. As somebody, a longtime listener, I grew up in an option offense, and am always interested to see those. What remains of that philosophy of football, and they most of the time they move around people to set up opportunities where you'll see anything from a zone read to almost what looks like a traditional triple option. So they'll do a lot with him. Big boy, like you pointed out, not somebody that's going to, run past the secondary or something like that, but somebody that a secondary member may have a hard time getting down to the ground. I look forward to see how creative they get, how many, if they really think this is a opportunity to try to show all the bells and whistles, what they could do with this kid. We'll see. This should be, I agree with you. This should not be an issue from either side of the ball, from a talent standpoint. And the kid is mildly talented, but we don't need to have some kind of BC podcast reaction where we're like, well, kid just gave the effort of his life and kept you in the game. So let's avoid that.
Totally. You don't really play any other good scrambling quarterbacks the rest of the year that I can think of, who are like, seriously good players now that Leonard's out. But you could face one in the ACC title game if you make it that far, and North Carolina happens to make it that far. So let's go out there and get a good defensive effort against a guy whose primary threat is his legs. I'm curious how they play this, right? Like I will say, Felton and Lane are pretty decent receivers. They're not bad. Yeah, actually, to the point. Yeah, Schrader's a fairly good scrambler as well. And depending on what Cuse gets back,
he's all right. He's not what he was earlier in his career, I believe.
Agreed.
Maybe
he actually showed up on some injury reports this week, so we'll see how healthy he is. But I do think he's going to play. if Dent is not back, right, and it's with the hammy that you could see him grabbing there, like it kind of is prudent to make sure that thing's fully good because that's something that you can re-aggravate and then be out another couple weeks. They're going to test Kevin Knowles, right? Like they're going to make him come down and tackle. And so far the year, those results are kind of poor, right? So we'll see how that goes. It'll be interesting. This is going to be a day where, like, I don't know how many sack opportunities you get. You'll get some tackle for loss opportunities.
Yeah, TFL.
How many 3 and outs
TFL
can you force?
is what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, TFL's 3 and outs are going to be the key here, right? It's you need to be playing primarily run, but disciplined run, right? Like not allowing like miscommunications and not cheating too much, to where you're getting at. We'll see. I think this could be an opportunity to get some young defensive linemen in as well. Rotate them a lot. This Virginia Tech offensive line really doesn't scare me. This should be a pretty good home crowd. Like we got a nice weather for the weekend. You got your undefeated Noles coming back to play for only the second time this year.
Sell out. I can assure you that the Tallahassee hotels are getting theirs. Yeah.
I mean, dude, like this is kind of the cool part about being Road Warriors for the first month of the year is now you got people pretty fired up about this football team. You're going to play in front of, I don't know if every single game is going to sell out, but I think the majority of them will. There's something to that. Like Doak has not been Doak in a couple of years, so that'll be interesting. Obviously, like we mentioned, the young D lineman. I think Hussey's another guy you certainly could look at maybe if he's able to get some reps in there. But I think it's a game where you probably do rotate quite a bit of guys on defense. And I mean, look, we saw a very aggressive defense from Adam Fuller in the second half of the Clemson game. Obviously, I think he said in his press conferences that he's not going to, do that all the time. But it would be interesting to see if you want to force the issue here. Make this guy react quickly in the backfield. Don't let him really get going. And I think it's a challenge to see also how well can you set the edge, right? Pat Payton, like can you set the edge, reestablish the line of scrimmage, or at least not yield line of scrimmage? Versus we have a pretty good feel that he can certainly do so, and maybe get some of the young linebackers in there too. You should hold them to something in the teens with your starters, assuming they don't get like crazy field position stuff. But this should be a defensive effort where you're limiting them to less than 350 yards, right? Like that would be something I think obviously you need to be watching for. Success rate somewhere in the 20s or the 30s, probably low 30s if it gets up there into the 30s. It's just, I don't know, man. After watching that game, like Pitt was a disaster. So, yeah, are people in the chat are saying they don't want to see him playing around like he did in the Southern Miss game. You pretty much dominated Southern Miss's offense. That was.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
Yeah.
The complaints are probably not to be made about something.
A lot of people, we'll just get to it, have asked about the Tez Walker being ruled eligible for North Carolina. I don't know if you have an update on that. I don't think that
I've spent my day on the phone on this. I don't have any update that's different than I did before 12 o'clock today. There was a time where in theory those two things were linked because they were similar, blah, blah, blah. I don't think they are. A little skeptical as to the new information provided, or
a copy
maybe
of the lawsuit
that North Carolina cynical individual like yourself, a new information could have perhaps been an antitrust whispered in their ear. Who knows? But I would not think just because one occurred that another is shortly in tow. So
yeah, I also from the jump thought that Tez Walker had a much better case than Djax. That's not an anti-Djax stance. It's just, do you follow Dan Wetzel at Yahoo?
I'm certainly familiar with him. If whether or not I follow him, I'm not sure.
So he's long had the line of like the NCAA wants to eliminate the quote dialysis uncle exemption, right? Which is like everybody has an uncle on dialysis, right?
Mm-hmm.
Basically, and they're able to find it, within 100 miles or whatever to to use the exemption. I mean, there are some extenuating circumstances with Walker, or excuse me, with Jackson, but Walker in particular, like the non-FBS schools. He was at an FCS school, which is a lower division school. They told him they were not going to play football in 2020 due to COVID. I think that's materially different. And I know FSU fans won't like that, but like, why should that he never played for him? Why should that transfer count against him? Like, his school literally said, we're not going to play football. My guess here is that there actually was new information. It was probably some sort of documentation to that effect that they actually, were able to produce or whatever. But I kind of doubt it. I think it's probably just, hey man, this is a PR lawsuit or PR battle you really don't want to have to face. And I assume North Carolina was okay going to discovery, which,
yeah.
Each situation is different. So yeah, under 350 yards, starters need to be, hold them to like less than 20 points, I would say, would be an okay effort. Under 2 touchdowns would be extremely good, obviously. Let me see what else here. Yeah, man, like I think this is a worse offense than Boston College. Just looking at it, they've not performed very well. Now maybe they're starting to get a rhythm, and maybe Jones just needed to play more. But like, he did play several games, and the only good one he had was a Pitt team. It looks like they just completely collapsed. So, we'll see. Let me see. Do we want to talk a little congruity, a little battles in? What we want to talk before we go talk about Florida State's offense?
Yeah, we'll just have a 10-minute talk about the battle's end here.
All right, sounds good.
I'm joking. Now, always want to talk about our friends at Congruity. I haven't talked to Matt in the past 2 days or so. I'm not sure if he's coming up for the game or not, but whether he's in person or not, Matt Lewis is always a great option for any business that I'm involved in, and he would be for yours as well. Happy to make an introduction if that is so desired. I frequently praise Matt, and for good reason. Honestly, give him 5 minutes, see if there's any, whether it be payroll, HR, if there's any good fit between your business and Congruity. Haven't spoken to anybody that has had, anything but a very, very positive response. So they've been brilliant in some of the businesses that I've been involved with over the past couple of years, and will wholeheartedly endorse Matt and his team.
Let's talk a little Virginia Tech offense, or sorry, FSU offense and Va Tech defense. So this is according to Bill Connolly, a top 50 defense, right? Which is rated like slightly better than FSU's. There ain't a chance in hell I would trade our FSU's defense for this defense. I think part of it is that like the Hokies actually played okay defense last year, so you have some preseason stuff still baked in. And they have played some pretty bad offenses themselves. They played Old Dominion, which ODU is pretty horrendous on offense. Marshall had like 16 tackles for loss against them last week. They played Purdue in the middle of that hurricane, and they had like the big time. Or that was not the hurricane. Remember, it was like week 2, right? When they had all the crazy rain delays all throughout the coast, and all the games, like broadcast wise, were delayed, and they had like a 6-hour rain delay. And they actually showed pretty well against Purdue. I think the weather had something to do with that in that one. They played Rutgers, and Rutgers cannot throw the football like at all. And they actually stopped Rutgers' run game decently for the most part, but then they allowed several long explosive runs in short yardage situations. So you got to give them some flowers for that. Marshall just extremely one-dimensional, and Pitt obviously we discussed Pitt to start the show. Like, Pitt is a joke on offense right now. Like, they don't really appear to be trying, which is the problem. All right, I think if you assembled an all-star team of the offenses played by the Hokies so far, I would still take FSU's offense First of all, I have no idea who would quarterback it. Like zero.
Mhm.
Maybe Hudson Card. So, okay, not a downgrade from Jordan, but not like the biggest downgrade possible in the world. Receivers, like Purdue's got the Burks kid. I guess Pitt has Bub Means.
You taking? Does anybody else have Keon Coleman?
Correct. Exactly. Like I'm not even sure anybody else would like would Burks give Wilson a run for his money? It's early, maybe. Like he does look like an NFL guy, so whatever. Like they'll both hear their names called in the draft, most likely. I'm still taking Wilson. He's pretty unique talent, especially as a 2. Yeah. Offensive line wise, I kind of still think I would take the Noles offensive line over an all-star cast of what they played so far. I don't know if people realize this. Pitt was missing 4 out of their 5 offensive linemen from the other preseason. So I am extremely skeptical of some of these Hokies defensive numbers. They're aggressive and they move a lot. Man, these linebackers and safeties don't look great. Like the one kid that got back, Stroman, he's not bad. They have a stud in the secondary named Delane. I don't know if you've seen him or not. He was playing corner and then he moved to safety. He's like a top 100 pick type guy, I think. Like I just don't think they've played much so far. If Florida State comes out and plays FSU football, they do have a chance to rock the Hokies world. I just don't think they've faced anything like this so far. And that's not me saying like FSU's a top 5 offense. It's like a top 15 offense would be a major upgrade over anything they've seen so far. So I'm curious as to how this will look. They're also not very big on defense. Like it's a lot of quickness and movement.
And that's the point I'm about to make. Man, I will have concerns if the run game is not established early and often against Virginia Tech. You're coming off a bye, had a chance to evaluate some of the metaphorical Rubik's Cube that we've referenced at offensive line with some pieces. I think also, I don't know that anybody was like significantly injured outside of that of what's obvious. Mo is battling like he always does, and Rob Scott is going through what he's going through. But I think you've been able to nurse some people back to health. You should be able to run the ball here. You should be able to have some impressive stats. And that's my full expectation. And we can talk if it doesn't otherwise happen. But I think this is a big day for the run game.
Yeah. Totally agree. If they want to just outnumber you like crazy, then it could be a big game for the play action game, right? Like, well, let's see how they play it. I can't imagine anybody would try to just completely outnumber you in the box and make you throw the ball right now, given what you have at corner and what the Noles have at receiver. But maybe they do. So if they want to cheat early, back them off with some of the ball over the top. This could also be a decent day for the slots, I think. Honestly, like you haven't really had them involved a whole lot. You've played a ton of 12 personnel, or maybe some tight ends down the seam. I think the seams are definitely exploitable. We've seen some teams hit them on some seam stuff so far this year. So interested to see that. They base out of a 4 down front. I probably should have noted that. These ends are pretty quick though. I will say, like they're not big, but the one kid at Florida from UF who transferred in, Pal Ryland, is pretty violent. So it'll be a little challenge at times, but a challenge in like this is not an FCS team. This is not a G5 team. I'm not entirely convinced that this team, as currently constructed, is a top half of college football team. If you are a team that is seriously competing for the college football playoff, you should put up points. You should be scoring in the 40s, in my opinion. If you're as good as we think you are, you should be scoring 40 something. I think, unless you're really trying to get the backups in or something. Obviously, everybody's seen the practice videos. Jordan looks like he's practicing without the brace, so that's extremely encouraging. I still don't know that means they're going to run him a whole lot, right? But maybe getting him on the move a little more. Who knows? I think the bye week, for the most part, has been really good for this football team. Maybe Rob Scott gets some play time. Byers Like there's no rule that says Byers can't get better with more reps. You would only expect him to improve as the reps come, right? Like I don't know. Everybody's kind of writing him off, and he's not played very well so far. But you are 4-0, or 5-0. Excuse me, 4-0.
4-0.
Anyway, sorry.
4-0.
I'm gonna sneeze.
Cool. So planning on moving to 5-0 on Saturday. Look, man, it's an adjustment for these kids when they come in from the portal. I would not write Byers off at all. To do the future of the offensive line is going to continue to be, he's going to be part of it, in my opinion. So we'll see what happens there. At the same time, if you do get Rob Scott back and you can have, whatever comes with your tackles and who that ultimate pairing is, perhaps there's a time where Byers could slide down, and I'd love to see what he looks like at guard as well. So
totally. All right. Let me see here. Back usage. Like how much Benson do we think we're going to see? How much Rodney Hill do we think we're going to see? I'd like to see some Rodney Hill involvement here. I'd like to see, maybe throw Rodney the ball a little bit and see if we can get these safeties for them to come down and tackle the football a little. How much run game does FSU want to try to establish here? Will probably be a really important factor in clearly they've tried to establish it.
Yeah, I think a good bit, just me personally. I think that that's the one part of this offense that you haven't truly been able to get going. I think there's potential load management at a lot of these positions that we talk about. It's tough to load manage when you've yet to get a position fully online, right? So I just personally think that the run game will be featured heavily, and that surprised me if you went away from it.
Cowboy Bob says, do we think Rob Scott's ready to go against Miami? Miami's a month. I would be surprised, assuming no setbacks, if he's not back for Miami, personally. I don't know about you. I definitely think that, we have a shot there. I agree with you. I think it will be a heavier rush game in terms of play volume. It doesn't necessarily mean more your yards will come from it, right? Like there's certainly a possibility that your run game is your sort of like maintenance thing here. Maybe you pop one, maybe you don't. Maybe pop two. Hopefully, they've not been a great run defense so far, and they definitely misfit some runs and have allowed some explosive runs, but you really haven't had a whole lot of explosive runs so far this year. But there's certainly the possibility that you hit the explosive pass against them as well, based on the alignments and some of the play action stuff that you could hit them with. So I'm excited to see that, man. This is going to be a lot of fun, I think. Again, should be awesome weather, sellout crowd. I don't know. Maybe we should read more into the Pitt win, but I mean, that was a good home atmosphere for the Hokies against a Pitt team that appears to be pretty reeling. And they also had a couple guys out on defense as well. We'll see.
Thank our friends at Charlie Park. CharlieParkRooftop.com is the website. I've spent the last day or so just browsing the menu as I knew I was making my way down to Tallahassee, and all the different things that we've mentioned prior. And then tomorrow, bud, I think I will go over there. I think I'm going to order the seared Pacific halibut. That sounds like a hell of a meal. They've got a couple different things here that are particularly interesting. Also have a burger a la Charlie, which is Australian Wagyu, a black garlic aioli, Millionaire's bacon jam, and a Japanese brioche bun. So if you want to go burger, you want to go fish, you want to go steak, Charlie Park is a fantastic place. And as I said, with the Noles having 3 straight home games here, whether it be this weekend or a following one, I would certainly encourage that you guys put it on your schedule if you are making your way to Tallahassee.
It's an awesome place. Like every time we go there, we have a good time. It really all the For the Table properties do a great job, and like it's first class service. And as is everybody we work with on the show, right? Chad and Shannon, Matt Congruity, Tarpon Sellers, Battles in 100%. Football Jedi 2672 says, in order to look like a college football playoff championship team, you have to score big points. Question mark, question mark, question mark, Georgia. No, I don't think you have to in order to make the playoff. You probably do need to demonstrate an ability to score some points if you want to actually win the whole thing. I would, however, point to you that the way Florida State is constructed, yes, the offense needs to score big points, because I think we do understand there is a certain level of ceiling on this defense due to the talent level on the defense. There is good talent on the defense. There is not a lot of, first round type players on the defense. I mean, Georgia can get away with scoring a little bit less points than you can because both linebackers are like freaks. And Michael Williams is kind of a freak. And they're having a down year at D tackle and probably have like a third rounder and a sixth rounder.
Yeah.
Right. And both, like, Malachi Starks is a total freak, and Bullard is going to be drafted really highly, and their nickel's good. And Georgia can get away with scoring a little less points than you can. If they
Georgia's just got different personnel than you. I always get, look, they've been at the top of the recruiting world for 4 or 5 years now. It's just a different looking roster. That's why I'm always hesitant for people to be like, well, how do we match up against Georgia? Well, check with me in 2 years. If Florida State is, continued to recruit at a high level from both the portal and high school level, then, from a roster standpoint, that's a much more apt comparison. I certainly get what Fatal Jedi was saying there. And to that point, I think it was the last podcast we did that, yeah, man, if Georgia's going to mess around with everybody, then yeah, this is a wide open year. There is, both a little bit of a complex conversation here. And the fact that you are limited, you have your flaws from a Florida State perspective, but nobody's just running out every Saturday and kicking people's ass either. I mean, this is a year where it appears as though the dance card is pretty open and yet to be written.
I think the best team right now, like if they had to all line up and play, is Michigan. Like McCarthy looks somewhat better to me. Harbaugh's comment that he thinks they have 7 linemen who will be drafted on the offensive side, and they rotate them all in, looks like slightly embellished, but not crazily embellished, which is still pretty damn impressive. I mean, if you get if you think all 5 offensive linemen are getting drafted, that's notable. And their defense is just, they haven't played anybody, but they are kind of doing the thing that like super elite defenses do, where you basically shut out or almost shut out everybody before it gets to garbage time. But yeah, like there's not a lot of teams out there that I would say FSU is like more than a touchdown dog to. Right? Like I guess Ohio State, but like, again, we got to see more FSU as well.
It's early.
Yeah.
It's early.
Like
week 4. I know we can't. I know when you play LSU and you play Clemson in your first 4 weeks that this conversation is going to come up. And that's a wonderful byproduct of being 4-0, right? You start to look nationally, you start to evaluate what other people are. I say this knowing damn well it can't happen, it won't happen, but I would love to table these conversations till week 6 or really even week 8. You just got, there's so much of the stories yet to be written out there, that just let it happen. Let it play out, and we're all going to have a much, much better idea as to the national landscape and where Florida State fits into it.
100%. No, I completely agree with you on that. And it does. Everybody's like, oh, it feels like 2007. Like the hell it does. 2007, we had upsets like crazy. Do you know we have only had a single double-digit underdog upset a top 15 team through 5 weeks?
Yeah, it feels like 2007 in the fact that there's no dominant team.
Yes,
2007 was crazy in the fact that, to me, it felt like every team that was ranked number 2, I think, lost 5 weeks in a row or something like that. I mean, 2007 was a crazy ass year. That would be the comparison. You're right. We have not seen a whole lot of wild upsets, but what we have seen is, and even to my point a second ago, let's see Michigan play a real football team for 2 weeks,
No doubt.
and we'll have a hell of a better idea as to what they are too. So
they may only play 2 real teams until they
Yeah.
get to, well, you can't say Wisconsin's not a real team, but like they're not like a, Florida State plays Duke. Like Duke's better than Wisconsin is, I think. Although without the quarterback, probably not, probably not. Yeah, in 2007, I still kind of think the best 2 teams that year were the Oregon team, where Dennis Dixon's leg, just like his thigh bone, like falls off of his shin bone, and like it was just ugly, and collapses there in the desert against Arizona State. And then maybe that USC team, which like that was kind of the quarterback injury year. Quarterbacks got hurt, and but there is a similarity there. Your best rosters this year, for the most part, do not appear to have the best quarterbacks. Like, I think Beck's been pretty damn good for Georgia. That, to me, that he's like not the least of their problems, but one of the least of their problems. Our producer on Cover 3 also runs the Georgia show, or did, for 24/7 Sports, and I was like, dude, do you think Carson Beck's the top 3 player on Georgia's offense? And he's like, no, but like he's definitely top half right now. I mean, they got Georgia's got some offensive line problems. Now, they may get them fixed when they get some certain guys back, but yeah, dude, it's wide open. You took care of a hell of a lot of business in week 1. Now everybody wants to crap on the wins, and the Joel Klatt stuff, obviously, which I saw the Nolecast Twitter account called him out for that pretty amusingly. With just, man, all those teams that don't play on Fox just narrowly missed.
Wow.
Weird how that happens. I don't get it. But it does feel wide open. Like, tell me the league that can't get a team into the playoff now. Tell me the league whose 1-loss champion won't have a hell of an argument.
Worried that it might be the ACC, but we can burn that bridge when we get there.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible, but the ACC had a pretty damn good non-conference year at the top, right? I mean, if
I just don't think the ACC gets the benefit. The transitive property game doesn't apply to the ACC for whatever reason, and people can, you can have your own theories on that as to why that is. But Clemson's the only team that would really get that at this point in time, and their transitive property went out the window in week 1. So
I could see that. I look at this, like I was looking at Caesars and looking at their the rest of year odds. I mean, it looks like there's a pretty good chance that like North Carolina finishes with 9 or 10 wins, right? Louisville's going to have probably 9+ wins, right? Clemson has a pretty good shot to finish with 8 or 9 wins. Like that's a ranked team, obviously, if they do so. Miami has a pretty good shot to win 9, 10, 11, or 12 is not completely out of the question, although it is unlikely.
Mm-hmm.
In some ways, the bottom of this league being kind of bad should limit the bad losses that some of these teams take within the conference.
Right.
By the way, it's also not completely out of the realm of possibility that Boston College can still make a bowl, which sounds nuts because they lost to Northern Illinois week 1 and they got blown out by Louisville. But if you look at this, and again, I don't think their bowl chances are great, but I got them at 17%. Like, that's not 2%.
No.
They get Army, Georgia Tech, UConn, Cuse, Hokies, Pitt, Miami. They need 4 of those. They're probably not going to beat Miami. Okay. No. Obviously. But
what percentage did you have him at?
17.
Well, 17. Okay. 17%. You can get a 15% discount, Bud, when you go to homefieldapparel.com and use the Nolecast coupon code. Nolecast23 is the code exactly. As we're fond of saying, they've got a sweet bomber jacket that we would encourage you all to go take a look at as the weather starts to turn. And as I drove down to Tallahassee this weekend, I realized, the weather hasn't quite turned down here. It's still like 91. So bomber jacket season soon, undoubtedly. But whether it be a t-shirt, whether it be a sweatshirt, whether it be some early Christmas shopping, homefieldapparel.com, a longtime friend of the Nolecast and a great product that we are proud to partner with and proud to brag on. So homefieldapparel.com, you can click the drop down tab to Florida State and browse some of their fine offerings.
Absolutely, man. I am going to get my bomber jacket soon. I've decided. I'm going to be pretty excited to do so. Let me see here. If we lost to Clemson, do we consider the offense is the problem? Play calling has been weird. No, I mean, look, both sides of the ball have had some struggles, but I think we can also acknowledge that you have played a pretty challenging schedule early on. Like, there's not been a whole, like, obviously Southern Miss was a let up week, but we didn't know how bad Southern Miss would turn out to be.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And then you get a really kind of a weird game with weird prep where you're doing like wet ball prep all week because you're expecting to be playing in a hurricane. Didn't get a whole lot of rhythm up there. Everybody's warming up in masks. It could be a sign that maybe there's some flu going on there. And Clemson is still a really difficult place to win. I was extremely impressed with Clemson. Okay.
No.
I like Clemson. I bet them last week. I thought if they got off the mat, they would, they would handle Syracuse. They're like a 3-touchdown favorite at home this weekend over Wake. That Clemson win, I think, is going to look better as it ages. That's my prediction.
For what it's worth, while we're talking flu, I think the beginning of the flu started to make its way through the team in the Southern Miss game as well. That's not me trying to create excuses or anything else. Just that was something that was around for quite a while. I'll put it that way.
I mean, just listen to Mike's press conferences. He hasn't been right for like a month.
Mm-hmm.
I'm serious. Like, I'm not trying to rag on him. Go listen to Mike Norvell's press conferences from like the end of the LSU game through now, and then compare it to what he sounded like last year. I don't think FSU changed their mics. Like, he sounds like he's been fighting something clearly for like a month.
Mm-hmm.
It definitely, like, there are other programs out there we hear whispers about too. It's like, oh shoot, they've got flu. Like, that's a real deal, right?
Yeah.
I think Clemson is a pretty damn good football team. I think you are a damn good football team too. Like, the fact that we're debating, like, are they national championship good? Can they get to that level? Can they play well enough to make the playoff? You look at this, their season win total rest of season is, look here. Caesars has it at 11.5, plus 150 to the over, minus 180 to the under for the regular season. So they think 11-1 is more likely than 12-0.
Mm-hmm.
Mathematically, yeah, that's true, right? Yeah. And there's 100% a chance that Florida gets their act together. I know how bad they looked last weekend.
There's a 100% chance of that?
No, sorry. There's a 100% chance that it is possible that they get their act together. Okay. Like there's definitely not a one. Thank you. Yeah, that would be no. Correction. They absolutely could continue to look like crap. However, do you know that Florida leads the nation in EPA lost to special teams penalties and to EPA lost in short yardage offensive line penalties?
Okay. So I think it was the last podcast or 2 podcasts ago that you were trying to find a way to quantify this. And it sounds like you have. Surprised. It shocks me that you were able to create more than just a gut feeling based off something. But yeah,
I was like, there's no way any team has had like 6 false starts in short yardage. That's against Power 5 competition, by the way. I'm not counting like a La Tech, which looks like a high school team tonight.
Yeah.
But among like big boy football, yeah, that's kind of where we're going with this. So like, can Florida get up and play a clean game? They played a fairly clean game when Tennessee came to town, so you may have a tough one there. Obviously, Miami. I don't know how many data points we have in Miami. There's some chance they're really good. There's some chance they're just improved, right? We don't really know yet. We'll see. There's probably some signal to what they did to A&M, but we'll see. I'm not totally sure what they are yet. We have a nurse in the chat. Asa says, as a nurse, I can tell you the flu will mess you up for a long time if you don't rest. Obviously, the team hasn't rested. Well, they got rest with the bye week, thankfully. When these guys get the flu, though, they do like throw them in a hotel and IV them like crazy. Go to the online class protocol, Bill says, not shocking that Bud's anecdote on UF was statistically accurate. Yeah, but I don't like to throw it out there as fact unless I know it. I actually did take some time to dig into it. Like, by the way, it's not close. Like, they're for the team that has the game changer coordinator and 2 offensive line coaches. You ever seen Bull Durham?
Yeah. I have.
All right. You know the shower shoes scene?
Shower shoes?
I should probably explain it. All right. So it's Tim Robbins and who's the guy that's on Yellowstone?
Kevin Costner is this catcher.
Kevin Costner, Susan Sarandon. This is like a 80s or 90s baseball rom-com. I'm going somewhere with this. You got a hot shot pitcher gets called up, right? Throws 100, thinks he's hot stuff. Costner holds up his shower shoes. He's like, your shower shoes got mold on them. He's like, and he's like, that's slobby. You can't do it. He's like, if you win 20 games in the bigs, they call you quirky for having moldy shower shoes. Until then, wash your shower shoes. Mm-hmm. That's kind of some of the stuff going on with Florida right now. When I watch them, like, yeah, this all seems like kind of clownish if you're not winning ball games with it. What else do we have here? Yeah, the chat is letting us know that Pearsall is pretty good. Cowboy Bob says Graham is in a different room every Nolecast. That's true. We try to keep him on the move. He's working extremely hard.
I'd be moving. I qualified for a hotel status recently that I never thought I would in my life. Just because,
are you an ambassador now?
I am.
Are you a Marriott guy? Or you...
Whatever. No, it's this IHG. It's because of the
gotcha.
Indigo in Tallahassee because I love that hotel. But yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I'm not gonna hit ambassador this year, and I'm extremely happy about it because it means I was not traveling 150 nights.
Yeah, I thought about you today. I had to buy a hotel room for one of our team members that didn't, and I'm like, dude, it was a Marriott property, and I'm like, is this in Tallahassee or is this in, Park Avenue in New York? I'm not sure because just wasn't ready to pay $840 a night or whatever else.
Oh my gosh, dude!
Dang. Yeah. Outrageous.
They will get you.
Yeah.
Did you alt bet Western? No, I didn't get any because I didn't see any places that offered the prices I want, and I'm pretty price sensitive on that stuff. Sorry, just going through the chat here. Yeah, man. So here's something though. Despite the fact that Caesar says, hey, they're 11.5 juice minus 180 to the under. Think about this. They have the second best odds to make the playoff out of anybody right now. It's kind of impressive. Now part of that is because the Big Ten's bid is divided among 3 teams. Like clearly, if you look at it, like whoever comes out of the Big Ten is basically a lock, unless somehow the West team wins, which would be kind of the shock of all shock. But still, like the fact that you have the second best playoff odds right now, it's kind of nuts. I mean, that shows you. Think about it. Like what are Georgia's undefeated odds, right? Georgia is minus 190 to the under at 11.5. Florida State minus 180. Mm-hmm. So we think of Georgia as like impenetrable, okay? And we think of the SEC East as being really down, and it certainly is. You have better odds to go undefeated during the rest of the season than Georgia. Michigan is not 11.5. It's 11 juice under.
Yeah.
Minus 150. So people are like, oh, well, are they going to go undefeated? The math says no, really on every single team left at this point, right? Now, if we get to November, then the math will swap because you have less variance with only 4 games left. But I thought that'd be kind of instructive. I wanted to pull that tonight. Like
Another good question from chat. Who
Yeah.
does have the best odds to make the ACC game after Florida State?
So I don't see anybody with make odds available, right? But if we want to talk scenarios, we can certainly do that. So to win the ACC right now, it's FSU minus 150. So you're basically having to lay FSU against the field at this point, which, honestly, like is probably fair. Miami at plus 450, North Carolina plus 600, Louisville plus 600. Okay. And then it's a pretty big drop. Duke plus 1,200, Clemson at 20 to 1. Okay. So, yeah, it's essentially a 4-team race, but I think obviously there's some chance it's a 5-team race with Clemson. NC State's not going to win it. Syracuse can't get there. Wake, right. Obviously, if you lose at home to Georgia Tech, you're not going to get there.
No.
I think we'll learn something on Saturday night when Notre Dame comes to Louisville. Just how live is this team? I don't know. They got an ACC win over NC State, which was one of their toughest games. But NC State just benched Brennan Armstrong. I don't know if you saw that or not. They're going to go to MJ Morris.
Yeah,
that's a good question from the chat. Yeah. So as you go into the weekend, if she's got to take care of business, got to stay healthy, got to work on some things. I hope they try a lot of different stuff. I hope they rep a lot of different stuff in the ballgame. I feel fairly okay.
Mm-hmm.
You got a prediction?
$44-13.
I like that. I'll go 45-17.
Cool.
I think there's some chances defense is kind of smoke and mirrors for them. So, we got anything else from the chat we want to get through here? Let's see. Grill Master, that's a good name. Says he's not buying Louisville at all. How much is the portal? Oh, we can take this last one. How much of the portal is going to affect us next year? We have a ton of talent. I'm a 90s grad, so I'm trying to temper my hopes of another run. Yeah, that's from Sky Ninja FSU. Look, I mean, Florida State clearly wants to. I think they want to compete for a playoff spot every year. I don't think that it's like a 5-alarm fire if you miss out on the 12-team playoff in a year, clearly. But they have certainly built a team. They're trying to do the legwork to build a sustained program through the high school ranks. And we know they get negatively recruited like crazy. So are they going to use the portal again? Damn right they are. Are they going to use it to the exclusion of high school? No, I think they're actually going to pivot a little bit, whereas some teams are going to have to go crazy portal. FSU is looking pretty good in the high school ranks. Obviously, McCray coming for an official visit this weekend. Could be a nice game for Jared Verse to have a big game, right? Certainly. So, yeah, man. I think
the portal is to be determined for a lot of different people right now. Programs are going to continue to lean on it more. The changes that occurred, I don't think are going to change much. You saw a little bit of a shrinkage of the portal. I don't think that matters at all. But I do think that more and more programs, obviously there's some obvious outliers of programs that have chosen not to partake really, but I think it's pretty clear that you've either got to embrace the portal or you've got to be comfortable getting left behind. And I think that attitude was there last year selectively some, but I do think that the next portal season is going to be wild because I think it is very clear that taking kids in the portal doesn't mean that you're locker room turns to ish. It doesn't mean, some of these things that you heard, not necessarily true. Now, if you go and obviously there's exceptions to that, but portal's going to be real active in my opinion. And I think Florida State, obviously is leaning, it would appear just based off the number of kids they're involved with, that they're leaning into the high school recruiting. And like you said, that's something that they've been negatively recruited for in the past and aware of it. So
the one, not counter, but the question I would have with the lack of the double transfer now, right? You will see a little bit less portal activity from that standpoint in terms of how many kids go in. I think we will have more suitors than ever in the portal for players. I don't know how we're going to have, like, that's just a limiting factor as to the supply side, clearly. So guys who were freshmen and played in 20, they'll definitely have the extra year still. So we'll still have one more crop or one more full year of all of the, if you want to call them like we were calling COVID seniors. People didn't like that. So like what, but bonus seniors or whatever, but bonus year kids, they'll still have that ability. From an FSU perspective, there are not that many guys who are 6th-year players that you are really pursuing in the portal. Like for the most part, and this is a compliment to the level of program that you've built. But for the most part, with these super seniors, if they're like the true super senior, like the 6th-year type guy or the 5th-year type guy, most of those dudes, if they're good enough, they're going pro. And based on where you're at, like, yeah, maybe you take a depth guy there. But like I could see Florida State, pursuing. Obviously, we expect Verse to go pro at this point, clearly. Maybe another defensive end potentially. We'll have to see how linebacker and secondary shakes out, but it'll be an interesting one for sure. I'm curious to see how it all shakes out, but I think Florida State is looking really pretty damn good in recruiting, man. Chad wants to know who is the next commit for FSU. I actually don't know who I would put for that. That's an interesting one. I'm gonna think about that, and we'll do next show with that for sure. I don't know. They're in on big fish right now, really. Like there's some flip candidates, obviously, but I don't think they're going to take that many more high school kids. They'll take a couple more, but I don't think you're going to take like 12 more high schoolers. So they're going to be selective. Some of these guys that they're with are going to run the gamut. And I like this class they've built. I really do.
I'm very interested to see if you don't have a portal limit in the similar manner that you have a scholarship limit, so that you can extend to high school kids. So it wouldn't shock me to see that maybe there be like you could only take 10 kids in a calendar year. I'm just throwing a number out there.
Sure.
But I think something like that is coming at some point. I think I don't know in 2 years if Dion could do what he did. I'll put it that way. I think it's going to be a different landscape. So
now, do you think that 2 questions? Number one, who pushes for that? Because like K-Bono, who benefits? High schoolers, clearly, because right now there's a lot of high schoolers that are iced out of spots. On the flip side, who pushes for that? And B, if they do get that, do you think that they would extend it to coaches in their first 2 years at a school? Because right now they basically, like, it's open season if you're a brand new coach.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you can basically sign unlimited.
Right. Who pushes for it? Politicians and other people who are getting their hands in the portal.
Okay.
And NIL and other things. That's where I could see this coming from.
I'm picking up what you're putting down there. Pretty important labor law case today started. I don't know if you're following this or not. I assume you are. We could probably start to talk about this a little more in the next show, but that Yale case it's interesting.
Mm-hmm. Very.
Yeah. Some things make it a whole lot more simple going forward, and some things make it a whole lot more complicated. We'll just have to see. You got anything else, man?
No, I think that wise little nugget of Bud wisdom is a good spot for us to end tonight. So,
all right, man. Be well.
Talk to you soon, brother.